one of the things that always impressed me with your leadership is I remember when you were first elected to office, you made promises that you would focus on the water quality issues. You really carried those through. And in our first meeting, it was clear you had a stronger grasp on the estuaries, the role of the water, and how the water moved than most elected officials held 4 years after their term of service. So that was impressive.
The problem with it is it's complicated. It's ecosystems, it's plants, it's animal life, bird life, and you got a lot of factors to put together to realize how important these water and mangrove-based estuaries are. Once people get it and they come down and see it, or they see pictures, then they become, a little more attuned.
So we know what we're fighting for. Every acre of mangrove matters. Every water quality that we're out of range is something that we have to fight for.
Well, first of all, when I found out that we've been getting a paltry $30 million a year for years since the SERP was passed to try to build out these multi-billion-dollar projects, that money would barely pay for the engineering. So I set out to do the best I could to unify the Florida delegation around the Everglades and to raise the bar to get up into some serious money where we could get some of these projects that you've been pushing for so long funded. And now I think we've made some pretty good headway there. We got a couple $2 billion in 4 years, and we're on a path to get a couple $100 million more every year, which should keep the ball rolling while we build out A2, and like you say, the C-111 canal, the canal changes down at the into the park south of A2. Those are really important things to get accomplished.
When you reflect on your years of service and the change and the improvement in funding for Everglades restoration projects and to help with the water quality issues, what are the 1 or 2 key accomplishments that you're going to look back on and think these are really going to be very lasting contributions? We've talked about the funding levels, critically important to sustain Everglades projects. What are some other things that you think are going to be very important in terms of impact on the region long term?
Well, in addition to getting the money to keep the ball rolling, I think that some of our efforts have worked to increase awareness and understanding of how critical the environment is in Florida, how all Floridians of all political persuasions are true environmentalists because they care about the quality of life here. And that's a very important argument to make when other issues come up, like offshore drilling or like estuary nourishment or beach sand renourishment, things like that.
So Francis, what would you recommend for people that are concerned about the water that want to continue public involvement? What direction would you give them? What works when you're a congressman sitting in that office? What type of voices really rise to the top in your opinion?
Well, as you know, being a professional at it, citizen engagement is the best way to drive policy. And I think that the people that care about the environment, members of the Conservancy and SCCF and things like that should write op-eds, write their congressman, call on the congressman, which I know that people from our area have been very good at. I think that it's very important to look at the example of the back pumping, that when the citizens rose up, Sugar had to stop back pumping. And I think there's a lot more things that citizens can get accomplished if they work together.
Francis, if there are a couple of issues that you would advise residents of Southwest Florida to keep an eye on, both positive and particularly challenges that may threaten water quality in the next few years, what would you have them really focus on?
Well, I think one is the offshore water quality. The harmful algae blooms, the impact of the red tide, the dead zone that we have growing out there. We gave one of those reefs. We gave the reef that's 29 miles out off of Marco Pass. And I had a friend dive it, and it was hypoxic at 71 feet deep. That's like Louisiana or the Black Sea. We have a lot of work to do to end those dead zones. The other thing is, one thing that ought to keep us all up at night is Miami. Miami would love to get their hands on our Everglades water.
So those are important things for residents of Southwest Florida to keep an eye on. I think sometimes we think the East Coast is the East Coast and the West, and there's somehow a false separation. But what you're explaining is that these water resources cross these boundaries, and we have to fight and protect those water resources.
Our Everglades start at Sweetwater.
In terms of climate change and its impact on our community, you've been a very powerful and important voice within the Republican Party for advocating for the science behind climate change, the challenges of the Gulf of Mexico, particularly the deep waters getting warmer and warmer. What do you think is the road forward for managing the impacts of climate change and how to begin mitigating it? How's this region going to deal with this?
Well, you're right. The deep ocean heat content is almost an existential problem for a coastal state. And I don't know what we can do about that now other than stop putting CO2 in the atmosphere. In maybe 20 years, it would go down. But we can prepare with resiliency measures to deal with the higher tides, higher waves, and problems that we're going to face like Hurricane Mike. And the military is trying to do that on their own because unlike a lot of ideologues, they don't have the luxury of not solving the problem. They have to raise their airfields, put up resiliency measures, and be ready to keep their bases in action. And I think we're going to need to do that in our towns. And we have a great group here in Collier County with Dr. Savarese and you all, and people that have come together to create a resiliency task force.
Absolutely. In your time in office, we saw a major pivot about the environment, and that was understanding the public health concerns. You were very involved in trying to leverage more federal resources to bring to bear on understanding the impacts on people, on fishing guides, and people spend a lot of time in the water. Can you reflect a little bit on the importance of that effort and where that might move moving forward?
Sure. Well, the harmful algae blooms were a big surprise to everybody. You know, they started out small back in 2016, and then they continued to grow in a bad way. And so one of the things that we did, we held a series of harmful algae bloom conferences, one of which you were kind enough to host right here.
That's correct.
Where we brought in federal government experts, state of Florida experts, Ron DeSantis showed up, where we could have a roundtable about the measures that our community can take to deal with these problems. And that's where we engaged the CDC, the EPA, the National Institutes of Health, the state of Florida agencies, both health and environment, to help us in this community.
And as we conclude here, what message would you give to the members of the Conservancy, those people that pay their dues, that join this organization? What thoughts or suggestions might you have for them about the importance of being affiliated with an organization such as ours?
Well, first of all, it is critically important that there are people like your board members and your staff and your supporters. Without them, we would have no environmental movement here. One person can't do it. It needs the community behind it. And SCCF and the Conservancy are the crucibles for organizing community discussion, community forces, and that's very important. Politics is just nothing but the community influencing the politicians.
Thank you. And we're so honored to be able to provide you this award this year, the Eagle Award, which, as you know, is the highest award the Conservancy presents annually. And any reflections as you are concluding your term of public service on this award, the Eagle Award, being both the emblem of the mission of the Conservancy, but also representing just a recognition for your leadership, and any thoughts about how you feel about the recognition from the members and the board and the Conservancy for your work?
Well, I can't thank you enough for what it means a great deal to me to be recognized by such influential leaders in this community and such an influential institution as the Conservancy. And there's nothing more important to me than seeing your continued success and the continued success of your board and your donors. And look forward to working together to make sure that happens.
Absolutely. Thank you for your leadership. Well, it's an honor to present you officially and formally with the Eagle Award. This was an award that was presented to us, a photo presented to us from Dennis Goodman, who is one of our volunteers. He's a local photographer. And it is inscribed with the words Conservancy of Southwest Florida 2021 Eagle Award winner, former Congressman Ambassador Francis Rooney. We are so honored that you're receiving this award, and thank you for all your service to Southwest Florida.
Well, thank you very much. This is a real honor. And I guess that eagle that sits in front of on top of the cypress tree in the pass can stay now that we stopped the dock project a few years ago.
Every eagle nest is worth keeping.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Congratulations, and thank you
very
again.
much.